Hey DJI fanboys and fangirls, welcome back to another drone video about something you probably already have or something that you plan on buying. I've had the Mavic Air 2s for about a year. It's actually been a really killer drone. My last review I did on a drone was the Phantom 3, which a lot of people love that drone. It wasn't the best drone for me, but something that you might want to check out right below. So I've been a drone pilot for the past 2 years. I got into drone photography because I was going to do real estate photo video drone for a company based out of Florida during the pandemic. And during the pandemic is when I really started making money doing photography, with actually food photography first, which transitioned into me looking at this as something that you could make money with and enjoy doing, and make a lot of money and work hard and take time off whenever you want. But when I got into doing drone stuff, I didn't really actually have any current interest in it. It was something that I bought because I was like, let's go down this route and see what we can actually make out of doing it. And that first company, it actually didn't work out. Like, we never even did more than a shoot. So I had like a drone and I was doing food photography. So I didn't even think about you could take pictures of the insides of buildings and get drone images and use it as like an upsell. So I was doing like a $200 food photography shoot for a company that had hired me back to do some more images. So I threw in the idea, let's use this drone. I've got it. You might as well make $1 now that I'm out doing there. And I think I charged $75 for my first ever drone shoot for photo and video, which is something that I wouldn't recommend doing because that's just a little bit way too low for your time, effort, energy, and available resources. But so I've got this Mavic Air 2s, and I got the Air 2s because crashes happen, and I actually had crashed my Mavic Air 2, and I was like, oh man, I literally got to buy something today. I've got DJI Care, but I don't have the time to waste at all. So I got the Air 2s from Best Buy, 3 batteries and everything, and on this drone, right off the rip, the actual camera on here, it's got the same casing as what you'd have on the Pro, the Mavic Pro that has the Hasselblad camera on here. But this sensor on here, this drone on here, produces, if you're really comparing apples to apples, being the Mavic Air 2 versus the Air 2s, image quality, you're gonna have to blow it up on a real screen, a real 4K screen, to see a big difference on there. One thing I want to show you right here is actually some of the low light performance of this drone. It really does a great job in any kind of low light performance with video. You're not going to see any issues on there. Getting back to my Phantom review, that drone just couldn't make it for me for doing video. Maybe I had a bad one, probably did. But this thing, because of the bigger sensor on there, really does do a great job. As far as the tech specs on this drone, having master shots, shooting in 5.4K, having HLG, that's really cool stuff. But again, it really comes down to, are you doing day in, day out, shoot, bam, go, go, go? Or are you doing more of long-term projects? Or are you really doing bigger projects where you're gonna match, your Sony, your Canon camera with DJI's camera and do some kind of creative let that produces a unique product? When I have used the D-Log on here, I did one D-Log in 5.4K and pretty much the same clip in 1080 with the standard picture profile. And it could have just been where I was at that day, that it wasn't very dynamic, but I really couldn't tell a visual difference in the quality of the standard picture profile versus D-Log. That doesn't mean that I'm right, and I don't have a ton of experience doing it, but in certain scenarios, where is the difference and who's paying you for that? So with DJI, literally every few months there's a new drone. This is one of those in-between drones before the 3 and an improvement on the 2, but not necessarily a Pro where you've got the variable aperture on there. So if you're looking at this drone, I would recommend getting it. But if you're looking at the Air 2 or the Air 2s, who's gonna notice the difference? Probably who's gonna notice the difference is gonna be you when you put it on a big 4K screen, or like your customer who's requesting the highest image quality. What I run into a lot with people who do want like 4K, 5K video, I've had certain instances where they're like, we can't actually use this because they're using an editor. It's like too high of quality, which is super ironic. But like it just depends on like what your end use is. The Mavic Air 2 for a beginner, for the price, this is the drone that definitely I would get or would recommend getting. This is really, really, really good and slightly better, but who's gonna tell the difference? Like who's gonna pay you more money to fly the Air 2s versus the Air 2? Doesn't mean that like this one isn't better, but what are you gonna be charging and what is like your income gonna change on having this? So that's why this one's still a really good competitor or like option to have. So one really cool thing with like the Air 2s is like the extra collision avoidance that you're gonna get on here. I fly a lot in sport mode because I'm trying to get from point A to point B and be completely done as fast as possible. I personally have some silly accidents where wind's blowing and knocks my drone out of the air, or I'm just doing some casual flight and I wreck like on the way home, you know, returning to home. But those extra sensors can be a big difference for flying up. I can't say that on this drone, the Air 2 flying up, Mavic 3, I've ever had any issues. On the Phantom 3, flying up, I've definitely hit stuff because that drone on return to home just went wherever it wanted and had no collision avoidance on there. Again, it's an old drone. Haters or lovers of that drone, have a good day. So sorry. So there you have it. Nothing like overly complicated, too gaudy, too fancy. If you're looking to get the Air 2s, freaking buy it, man. It's a killer drone, especially if you're in it used versus like $1,300 when it was new. It's definitely, unless DJI Alltel makes some wild changes, the Air 2s is a kick-butt drone, has some really sick features. Air 2 is still a solid drone in my opinion. 2 years after the fact, but long-term review, I love it. Probably gonna sell it just because I've got a friend who's looking to get into drones. And as fun as it is to have 5 drones, don't necessarily need 5 drones, but it's always good to have backups. But someone else wants to enjoy it, totally cool. And it gives me an excuse to actually make a review video once every 8 months. So guys, if you like drone video, real estate photography, want to learn more about food photography, huge thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. Until next time, hopefully less than 8 months from now.